Hi, this is Katrina. I am with JLL Roberts, author of 40 plus books in the fitness industry and growing. Um, we're going to get right into discussing his books and how his journey towards being a self-published author. And I'm really excited. Um, so do you want to share a little bit about what made you get into this industry in the first place?
Yeah, absolutely. It's funny. Everybody, as you're watching this, Katrina and I have been talking for easily about a half hour now. So you've missed all of the great stuff. So maybe we've already kind of burnt through things, but I'm DLL Roberts. I'm actually an indie author. That means I'm self-published. I don't go through the traditional publishing route, and I'm proud of that. I got into this business about 2013 when I first started writing a health and fitness book based on a challenge from my corporate wellness coach. That's right. That was when I actually had a day job. You fast forward to 2014, took me about a year to write that first book. I published it and made about $23 and some odd cents the very first month. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to quit my day job because that's what real people do. By the way, folks, don't ever do that. It was a hard 2 years thereafter. It was really, really rough. But, you fast forward to a little over 5 years later, and I don't regret it. I might have ate a lot of dirt and had a lot of ramen noodles and frozen vegetables. But in the end, I think that I am really happy where I'm at. I'm happy with the trajectory that I'm going
in. Okay. What was it about that first book that made you realize this is what you wanted to
do? Ever since I was a little boy, I wanted to become a writer. At a very early age, I was diagnosed with a reading comprehension issue, and it hurt my feelings. I felt like I could read, but unfortunately I could read, but I couldn't tell you what I just read. It was easy for me to do that, but I couldn't comprehend what was going on. But to me, I felt like there wasn't a problem. I can read, right? Why do I have to understand what I'm reading at that time? So it made me become, and this was the early signs of my obsessiveness that I have. When I find something, I just cling to it and I don't let it go until I thoroughly understand it. And I just devoured book after book after book after book until I finally started writing my own short stories. I graduated when I was 17 years old from high school and went to college to become a journalist. My end goal was to write for magazines. Somewhere along the line, life got in the way and I became discouraged. I dropped out of college, and you fast forward to where I'm in, my mid-30s, and it just circles back around to me to where I'm very passionate about health and fitness and working out and getting in shape and helping people. And my corporate wellness coach was acutely aware of that. And that's where she said, you're so passionate about these things. You should write it into a book. I didn't know anything about self-publishing at all. I knew that you could go to, say, like a print shop and get your books all printed out. And that was one of the first options I considered. But after exhausting a few of these options, I didn't want to have a garage full of books. I essentially just wanted to just have a good handful of books I can kind of distribute to family. So I started looking at more cost-effective options. And that's when I stumbled upon CreateSpace, owned by Amazon at the time. And I'm like, this is for free? Is this a scam? Like, what is the deal with this? And as I go through this and I discovered it was owned by Amazon, I'm going, well, this is a no-brainer. I get to go on Amazon? And that was it. That's where I just became inspired. I think when I got that first paycheck for my first month of just selling to friends and family, that I said, well, what if I can focus on this full time? What would the results be like? What would happen? And, the rest is history. So that first book, it was hammered garbage. I mean, it was horrible, Katrina. I don't know what your first book was like, but mine was just, it's terrible. I even went back and I re-edited it, rewrote some of it. It's still terrible. I just finally gave up on the first book. And the funny thing is, readers still like it. So I'm kind of like, I'm stuck between a rock and a hard place. I could go and pull it off the market, but there are people that are finding value in it. And if it is changing their life and impacting it in a positive way, then it would be a great disservice to the world by me saying, being selfish, I hate this book and take it on down. And, that's that. And this is something I try to tell other authors, like, don't ever take down your first book unless it's absolutely 100% horrible and you're getting 1-star reviews. Don't take it down. And at this point, it's still averaging, I think, a little over 4-star average review.
Sounds like it's definitely still got a good position for you.
Yeah.
Even if it's not your favorite.
Yeah, it's not my favorite. Don't tell it. It might get offended. It might weep.
Yeah, we can't have that. What does your typical day look like when you're actually in writer's mode or writing your next book?
I have to do one of two things. Either A, I have to stay up really late at night and then I can get into flow really easily. For some reason, something about me being exhausted makes me become more creative. It's really weird. If I'm in between being very energized and exhausted, I don't feel like writing. And or when I first wake up. So I have to get up bright and early. So that first book, I got up 2 hours before my wife ever got up. And that way I was completely uninterrupted. When I get into writing mode, I typically will put on some type of ambient music. I have something that's called brain.fm. Not sure if you're familiar with it, but they have like these, binaural sounding tracks. It kind of sounds like Blade Runner music, the movie,
Mm-hmm.
and I'll listen to that and it'll just be kind of quiet. And I literally just bleed through my fingers at this point. And I just try to just go as quickly as humanly possible without touching the backspace or delete. Because I've discovered over time that if I try to hit either of those keys, the editor comes out and that monkey mind takes over and it doesn't allow me to actually express myself. And I think that now over the past 5 years of continuing to practice this, it's becoming easier for me being okay with a misspelling, with a typo, of not wording a sentence properly. Or one of the worst case things that I typically do is I'll put in passive sentence structure. I'm horrible about it. For the most part though, I just try to just go right through it. So my writing process, I can typically I need at least 30 minutes of uninterrupted time. Ideally, if you give me 3 hours, I can sit down and probably crank out about 2,000 to 3,000 words. Now, I know it's not much, but for some people, that's probably a ton.
Mm-hmm. Oh, absolutely. And yeah, you actually have a similar process to what I've been putting myself through, actually. What book are you currently working on and what drew you to create it?
This is going to be the hard pivot and shift that I've been planning for the long time. And I've been doing the health and fitness books. As you kind of mentioned, I did over 40 plus books in the health and fitness niche. However, I took a step away from it. The last one I published was over 2 years ago. And since I've been kind of releasing second editions of each of the books. Because I feel like almost like I really kind of exhausted myself creatively in there. Mm-hmm. And over the past 2 years since then, I started this brand of self-publishing with Dale over on YouTube, where I show other indie authors how to self-publish their books and build this author brand. So now that I've got this audience, it only makes sense that I make this hard pivot from being a fitness author to now becoming this person that is dispensing advice on self-publishing, because I feel this is a great medium to not only aid to my credibility and authority as a person that is known for self-publishing, but it's also just going to be the foot in the door and speaking engagements, conferences, B2B opportunities, things like that. So I'm thinking bigger picture. So my next book is going to be focused on self-publishing. Now, I already have a book that I did during NaNoWriMo. And despite my friend James Ranson telling me, just go with it. You've got this stuff already written. Just get it edited. And I'm like, no, I don't like it. I'm starting from scratch because I feel like what I did during Nano was I was just trying to meet word counts rather than figuring out who's my ideal avatar, who's my reader, and what's their problem and how am I going to deliver it. So that's the position that I'm at right now. And this was something I discussed, and you'll probably want to be one of the first interviews that I've discussed this at. And this is probably brand new to you. I'm looking at putting together an actual nonfiction book, of course, based on self-publishing, but it's going to be for the video marketing influencer. So since I'm in the YouTube space and so deeply entrenched into it, I got a lot of friends that know there's power in writing and publishing a book, but they don't know the first best steps because they're too busy trying to manage their own brand through their video platform. Now, primarily, I'm going to say we're going to focus just ease of, this conversation. It's YouTube typically. So I want to show them how easy it is and break that up into bite-sized pieces. And I'm thinking of a larger vision of something like this. Yeah, I'm going to get the ebook, I'm going to get the print book, and I'm going to get the audiobook, but I'm also looking at possibly doing it into like a mini course of some sort that would link to each of those 3 publications. This course would be made available through other avenues like Amazon Prime Video Direct, on YouTube, so on and so forth. Like things like Thinkific, having it to where people can kind of register through that, and then building actual conference speaking engagements on this, specific topics that I'll have from the book, and then it just lends to itself. So when I approach conference organizers, I've got this book, here are the specific points that I cover inside this, and each one of these things I can give you an hour presentation on this. So that's really the big vision. I know that was a long answer to probably a short question, but I'm really excited more than ever. And I think that now I have grown such a following, it only makes sense that I make that step in that right direction.
Sounds like you're very excited, which is the best part and the best fuel for a new project.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What excites you the most about this project? What's got you really zeroing in on the big picture and trying to break it down into these little chunks?
This is going to kind of sound crazy. I've already hit bestseller status on Amazon, and not talking about just random small categories that, I was 300,000, but #1 in a category. Mm-hmm. I was in the top 3,000 in the Amazon Kindle store at one point. And so that's all well and good. Amazon bestseller status, internationally speaking as well. I've been a bestseller in each one of them. So that's great. What gets me excited is helping other people that are inside my realm of video content creation. That's what makes me excited. So when I'm writing this, I just envision the finished product, not of my stuff, but of the video content creators taking action and getting the results that I'm pretty much telling them that you're going to be able to get. So that's what gets me real excited, because they know how to do video. They know how to elicit responses and engagement and influence, as it's called these days. But they're missing just one small tool inside their box, and that is their own book. And it doesn't always have to be about trade published deals. I think some of them, unfortunately, think, I got to go still get a traditional publishing deal. No, that's not true. In fact, it would make more sense for you as a video content creator and an influencer for you to own everything outright and profit more at the end of the day.
Absolutely. What do you attribute to the success you've had so far?
It's so hard to point out any one thing. So I'm just going to probably lean towards the fact that being consistent. If it was anything that I've done, it's being consistent. I've noticed that any time that I consistently produce content and get it out there, I'm able to get feedback from people of what I'm doing right and what I'm doing wrong. And the fact that I'm flexible is also going to be something that brings more people to the table. If it's anything, consistency is going to be the main thing, is sticking with it, and transparency, being as transparent as possible. If this interview happened, I would say 3 years ago, prior to my YouTube career, if you will, it would have been more stilted. I almost always felt not very comfortable in my own skin. I was always good on camera. See, I was a former pro wrestler at one point, and you'd get me in front of a camera and I could just cut my wrestling promo. But that was put on. It was an act. It was something that I was trying to be. And I didn't have to be myself. I could be myself times 10, but you come over into something like this, it was harder for me. So you can even watch some of my older videos to where it was scripted and it was over the top and I was just a little bit ridiculous. But now these days, I'm chill. Like, this is me. Like you and I saw before we even got on here. This is exactly, I gesticulate like crazy. So someone will probably get slapped if they're near me. I'm very passionate about what I talk about, but not too overboard. And I'm relaxed. So those two things I'd say was big. So consistency and just being transparent and authentic in who I am. Just like you would see me off camera, you're going to get that on camera.
Okay. And what has continued to keep you rooted in the indie author community instead of doing like many other authors have as they start to experience some success? They seek that Quarry deal and the traditional publishing route.
Family. That's the best way I can describe it. It's so funny. We transitioned from me talking about my fitness books to all of a sudden going over to the self-publishing with Dale Brand. Apologize on that. But naturally I'm very, very passionate about it. I'd say the same thing kind of goes for the fitness realm. I really did start building some fantastic relationships, and I got emails that were just tear jerkers, like people that were struggling to lose weight, and they finally were able to do it with my publications. So I think that what keeps me so deeply rooted into what I'm doing right now is it's a sense of family, a sense of belonging, a sense of camaraderie, a sense of community. And when I hear people that took themselves from thought to writing it, to publishing it, to profiting it, and then growing an author brand, that's a high for me. And see, I don't do drugs or alcohol, so I need all the fixes I can get. So anytime I hear about these success stories, it keeps me coming back for more. It gets me really pumped up. So that's why I stay with this, is that belonging. And, do I see myself in this community in another 5 years? Most likely. In another 10 years? Probably. In about another 20 years? Well, let's go ahead and just do it 1 year at a time at this point. But, I'm one of these guys that's going to be in it from the long haul. And most likely this brand's going to start to evolve as time grows on. But it's still going to be the same old Dale. I'm still the guy that puts on a t-shirt and jeans and keeps it real.
And that's why you've got so many fans already.
Yeah, thanks.
If somebody were going to start reading your books, where do you think they should start?
I would say that's a good one. The best one would probably be right over here on my shoulder, 90-Day Home Workout Plan. That's my flagship book. That's the one I'm most proud of. That's going to go through a second edition here fairly soon. I'm thinking by 2020, I'll have that going in there. But that is the best starting point to me when it comes to my books, because it sounds like me. It is me. There's pictures of me in it. It seems really narcissistic, but I promise you it's not. It was just a cost thing back at that time. And, Kelly had a good camera. But in any event, that's probably the best book to start with, because if you have already been working out, it's the next best step. Now, if you're a beginner, then you're going to probably want to look at the Home Workout Plan for Beginners. And that is actually in process to actually be released in the second edition in the coming months. It's just about done.
Okay. And this is just open to any book you can think of. What is your favorite underappreciated book?
Oh, hands down, Mick Foley's Have a Nice Day, A Tale of Blood and Sweat Socks.
As soon as you said Mick Foley, I knew which one you were talking about.
Yep. It's a fantastic read. I easily read it 4 times. Even if you're not into wrestling, it's like the Rocky story. You go and you really want to get behind this guy. The way he wrote his autobiography is the truth is stranger than fiction sometimes. And that is like, his reality was crazy. It's nuts. It's amazing this guy has lived. And he's one heck of a success story. So that is in fact, I liked it so much. I've bought the book numerous times, and then I'll gift it to people when I'm done reading it. I even did, and this is insane, I even met him, had him sign a book. I gave it away to a friend. I don't know. I really want to go back to that friend and get that back because it has a signature of his in there. But it's a fantastic read. And I truly don't think enough people appreciate it because they think, oh, it's just a wrestler's book. It's not going to be. It's a fantastic read. Even if you don't like wrestling, you'll find that the story that he weaves, everything from his childhood to finding his current wife and, love of his life, to growing his family and trying to struggle to make ends meet in this crazy business. It's nuts. It's almost could pass as a romance story.
Well, I've seen some interviews with him and he's as down to earth as anyone could be. So that's something to definitely look forward to myself. It's been sitting on my very long TBR. So thank you for pushing it a little higher.
Yeah. My TBR is way, way too deep at this point. I have so many books. In fact, I'd say half these books, no, I'm sorry, 99% of these books on my shelf right next to me, it's the TBR, but it just keeps growing because I keep getting indie authors that'll submit something to me and I'll be like, oh, I'll go ahead and check it out. And I'm like, usually like, hopefully.
I know exactly what you mean. Okay, so writers getting ready to get started. They just finished their nano project. What's the first step you would suggest for a brand new writer getting ready to become an author to get that book out there?
Take a break. Get yourself some distance from your work. I know you're probably very ambitious and you're wanting to go ahead and fire it off. But if you took the entire month to go through and put out your manuscript, and especially if it's brand new or something like that, and you're new to this business, you need to get a little bit of distance from it. So that way, when you go back to it, you have a fresh mind. Now, this could probably be, if you're really dedicated, you really are obsessed about it, maybe a day. I would recommend taking at least a week. And then when you go back into it, you're going to go in and don't necessarily worry about any copy editing or any line editing. What you're just going to do is just throw it into a grammar checker, like a Grammarly, Pro Writing Aid, Hemingway, whatever you want to do, even MS Words like spell checker and such. And just go ahead and just go through and fix the innocuous mistakes, like just the small typos and some of the passive sentence structure. Just clean that up. And it might take you a while, especially if it's a novel. And just go through that. Don't worry about fixing or putting things in there. Don't worry about rewriting. Just kind of go through it, because as you're going through this whole process, you're going to get a big picture. And you'll be reminded of certain things that you went and wrote through, and take notes as you go along. I just try to tell people the reason you're going to do that is just clean up the stuff now that is simple. It's easy, because then you're going to end up having to go back through and then do the copy editing and the line editing. Make sure that all the content is dialed in just as you want it to be before you send it to an editor. I never send a manuscript all riddled with errors to an editor. That's one way, first of all, to really tick them off, and also have to spend a ton of money on an editor that you wouldn't otherwise do. I always try to get that stuff done here instead of over there.
Makes sense. Where can everybody find you?
It's super simple. Selfpublishingwithdale.com. Again, that's selfpublishingwithdale.com, and that's for the self-publishing realm. If you are interested, though, in the health and fitness niche, and you want to check out my other books, all you have to do is look up DaleLRoberts.com. That's, again, DaleLRoberts.com. The L stands for likable.
I like that. Thank you very much, everyone. This has been the very first author interview on my channel. I am looking forward to giving you the next installment here shortly.